Hello, story seekers. I'm Nico.
I'm Ben, and welcome to the Tiny Bookcase. Right now, you're listening to our favourite part of the week.
Stories, discussion, and a high likelihood of gratuitous obscenities, all to sate the hunger of the Bibliomancer Eusteris.
Regular listeners will know how it works, but for newcomers, Nico and I have both written a story to the same prompt.
We're about to share those stories with each other and you for the first time, and we'll workshop them on mic. But before we get to that, we got to have a chat about stress.
Yeah, I mean, I come from a family of stress heads, people that are successful in what they do, but they present like if they aren't stressed, then they are. They aren't trying hard enough, basically.
Oh yeah, 100%.
They're hugely dysfunctional, and it's a difficult cycle to break. And I know in my 20s, I was essentially dependent solely on coffee um, because of that hard wiring. But I reckon we found proof there's a drink out there now which you can supplement your coffee with to get a clean, anxiety free energy boost, which won't wreck your day with jittery nerves.
I completely agree. As an energy drink fiend, I think a much better alternative is having a coffee and Magic Mind. They reached out to us with their product, sent us some to try, quite a lot to try, and we've been using their little drink as a mental performance shot for 2 weeks now. The focus that comes with it is incredibly useful for feeling in control of my life. As someone who has constantly given themselves too much to do, using it to help me balance my work and creative pursuits, like it's great. Magic Mind have given us a link for everyone listening too. You get up to 48% off a first subscription when you use the link, or you get 20% off on a one time purchase. So if it does take your fancy, you could go to magicmind.com/TTB20 to take advantage of it if this is something you feel like you can relate to.
Yeah, I do want to mention that it is validated by doctors too, so it's not just like a random drink. These little drinks have mushrooms, nootropics, and adaptogens, plus over 100% of your daily vitamin C and D folded into ceremonial grade matcha.
That's so fancy.
They also do some really cool stuff like being carbon neutral and donating some of the proceeds to mental health charities, which is really nice. They ship it to over 65 countries and are so confident in their product that they have a 100% refund policy in place if you don't get on with it. That link is magicmind.com/ttb20. Let us know what you think.
And I think quite fittingly, with that in mind, our prompt is magic. So, Ben, enchant me.
Magic, Part 1. The Mind Soaker struck a match and lit another of his strange cigarettes as he pored over her family records. Agnella watched golden motes in the smoke sparkle when he exhaled, and followed it with her eyes as it roiled through the air to escape her home, politely, through the open window. How does it do that? She asked him. Magic, replied the Mind Soaker without looking up. With smooth skin and old eyes, he appeared ageless. Agnella approved that he wore his brown hair in a military ponytail, the sure sign of a veteran. She knew that his kind were credited with winning the war, but nobody really knew how they had done it. Their relentless census taking had grown their reputation as annoying bureaucrats, but Agnella felt instinctively that magic users would not do something so boring without good reason. She realized she was picking at her nails and quickly folded her hands together to still them. Although she couldn't see them through the window, she heard her kids shouting at each other outside, arguing over the rules of their game. Agnella's view was limited to the cobbles of the road and the covered well the village shared. She let her thoughts wander as she waited for the Mind Soaker's questions. The stumpy shadow of the well meant that it was close to noon, and the surprising heat of the autumnal day meant that clothes on the line would be nearly dry. Bellis was out rethatching the Chet's house, and he'd need his lunch soon, or he'd be in a grump later. One of the kids would have to take it to him. Agnella stood up from her seat at the kitchen table and quickly assembled some cured sausages, an apple on the verge of wrinkling, and a wedge of weak cheese. She tied them into a bundle with one of the kitchen cloths her sister had given her as a wedding present. The fabric bore an embroidered kingfisher and was covered in the small stains even a well-loved practical cloth accrues over the years. Bellis wouldn't mind. He'd just smile to see she'd packed him an extra sausage. When she opened the back door, the 3 children froze like deer staring at the glinting tip of a hunter's arrow. The bigger boy had scooped his elder sister up in one arm and had his little brother in a headlock with the other. "Bertie, put them down and take this to your father," Agnella said. She kept her tone even, but raised her eyebrows to wordlessly communicate that all 3 of them were standing on creaking ice. The boy released his siblings and sheepishly took the bundle from his mother before scampering off towards the north side of the village. "You two, go and scrump me some apples. We'll make a pie later." Agnella watched them run off. She smiled, admiring the lovely simplicity of their safe lives, and then frowned when the Mind-Soaker cleared his throat behind her. "Can you verify the children's parentage?" he asked. Agnella closed the door and walked back to her seat before replying. "Well, old Bess, the village midwife, can tell you I was the one split open by all 3, if you want to hear about that sort of thing." The Mind-Soaker nodded and stubbed out his cigarette in the dish she had provided. 3 crumpled butts stuck out of the yellow ash pile like the angled tines of a fishing spear. "And Bellis is the father of all 3? "Yes." Agnella tried not to bristle with the indignation she felt. The Mind-Soaker leant back from her anger and calmly took a 4th cigarette from the case he kept in the breast pocket of his grey uniform. He ran the tight cylinder across his bottom lip to wet it, before reaching for his matches again. Mild irritation swept across his features when he discovered the box was empty. It was the first emotion she had observed in him. "I have some from the stove," she offered. "No need, thank you." Instead, the Mind-Soaker clicked his thumb and little finger together. Agnella flinched when a small blue flame sprouted from the nail of the finger. He used it to light his cigarette before shaking his hand to extinguish it. "Your daughter was born before the war?" "Yes." "You were in the King's Cavalry, 3rd Regiment, correct?" "Yes." "I've read your record. It's distinguished. But you were discharged for unspecified medical reasons just before the treaty was signed." "Yes." Agnella answered him simply and refused to say anything more when he let the silence between them drag on. "So, why did you join up?" "My parents and granddam were killed when the Cozzos raided up the big river. My sister went to the city, and I thought it might make me feel better to pay them back some. So I joined up." The Mind-Soaker nodded. "The middle child, Albert, was born shortly after your return. Who is his real father? Please don't lie to me again." Agnella winced as she felt her resolve disappear. There was a war on." "Who is the father?" "A Kozo sailor I met during the sack of Mythtandu." "Met?" "At Sabre Point. I was blood mad, and he was handsome for a Kozo. He was just a boy, really, but he looked like the enemy to me then. I forced him." "War crimes remain crimes outside of war." "I know." The Mind-Soaker took out a notebook and jotted her revelations in it. It was dog-eared and likely filled with unofficial secrets which belied the truths of the census. She felt strangely lighter after unearthing the crime and lies she had long ago buried. There had been no point in concealing it from a Mind-Soaker, not if he had taken an interest in her Bertie. "Will all this go on the census?" Agnella asked. "No," he replied. "What's the point then?" "Nothing nefarious, I assure you." I won't let you take him anywhere, said Agnella, trying to remember where she had stowed her old sabre. She knew the Mindsoaker was armed with more than the dagger he wore, but doubted he was a match for her skill, even if she had let it rust. I don't intend to take him from you, but I will need to examine and soak him. In return for your permission, I will not alter his parentage in the official census, and your husband need not know any more than he already does. Are we agreed? Agnella, hearing only the part she understood, quickly replied, Yes. End of part 1.
That was thoroughly enjoyable.
Yeah?
I got big, you know, the Christoph Waltz at the start of Inglorious Bastards
Oh, yeah, I
scene
get that,
when
yeah.
he goes to the house where he's accusing the French farmer of hiding Jewish people.
Under the floorboards.
Yes,
Yeah.
it had that same sort of tension,
Oh, cool.
but in
Thank
a there were a couple of different sort of time hallmarks in it, which made it feel like you couldn't place it. There were things that were familiar, but they were kind of asynchronous, like having a cigarette case, but still everyone looking at the well still. So it had a, even though you know there was magic happening, that was the thing that made me feel like this is a world somehow unlike ours.
Yeah.
The
Yeah. Yeah, thank
I
you.
think the well was a good centerpiece, really. Like the mum looking at it, knowing from its shadow what time it was, and therefore knowing what duties she had to have done by that time, and that's really good in worlding for a character.
Yeah, it also means that there aren't clocks as well, right? Like
Yeah,
it's um yeah, thank you. Yeah. I liked the idea of it being used as a bit of a sundial, and that almost like bit where she's doing a bit of a stream of consciousness, almost like where she's just
yeah.
sort of going through all the bits and pieces of her day. Um yeah. Yeah.
Also, there's no sentence more suspicious than nothing nefarious. I assure you, that is the most clearly nefarious thing you could possibly say.
Yeah, it's like only liars tell you that they're truthful. You know that they are telling you the
Yeah,
truth. You know, um, it. Yeah, I mean we'll have to see in part 2, and obviously
yeah.
this is coming out this week, and part 2 will come out next week. And I think people might be able to guess what the second prompt is from the introduction of this episode.
Hmm.
But it was a lot of fun. I will say it's a little bit nerve wracking writing something that doesn't have a clear conclusion for the podcast,
Yeah,
because you are very much just sort of, you tee up the ball, take you establish your backswing, you bring your club back, and then it cuts out.
it cuts as the pitcher throws. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
the there's one line in it that it made my perception of the scene go a bit weird, and it's when you said that they were playing on thin ice, and I realised after a couple of moments that it was the colloquial, like, you know, you're on thin ice.
Mm.
But it's all of a sudden in my head they were like on a frozen lake and hadn't realised. So that might just be me, but it was an interesting turn of phrase. So I don't think there's anything you could change there. I just thought it was worth mentioning that I'd had that odd moment where I was like, wait, is this suddenly about to be not what I think at all, and these kids are going to fall through the ice? But
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a good note because it means that it hasn't scanned correctly to your ears.
yeah,
So I'll revisit it. I'll have a little look. And obviously, it's quite hard to give feedback about something that you don't know how it ends.
yeah.
But yeah, did you have anything else that you would have thought that you would have changed, or you would like to see more of, or didn't, like wasn't built out correctly for this point in the story? Because really, if we're talking about storytelling,
Yeah,
what needs to have happened in the first half is you need to have established all the principal characters
yeah,
and given people an inkling of where the story's going. I think that's a
yeah.
rough guide, isn't it? Like,
I mean, you've got that in that, like, we know the husband's away working. You introduce the kids, and then, you know, very cleverly, she sends away the kid that she knows is likely to be the thing that comes up without you explicitly saying that.
yeah,
It's we know about the Kozos, but we don't really know about the Kozos. There's a lot there. It gets nice and dark and juicy in what is fairly early on, seeing as this is only part one. So I don't think there's a huge amount to change. Like maybe when you write the second half, you'll be like, actually, it's more interesting for a detail to be revealed here.
Yeah.
Like at the beginning, he's blowing up the gold motes in the smoke. But then when it was just revealed that he's just smoking cigarettes, I was like, okay, so are they magic cigarettes? But maybe that's something that we'll learn in part two. It's good to have questions. So
Yeah. Yeah.
at the moment, I think you've done a lot of good setup. It will be really interesting to see where it goes.
See it fall on its face next week.
Well, mostly because in true Ben fashion, you've done loads of big juicy world building, but you don't have that many words spare realistically to maybe explore everything you've laid out. So it's going to be interesting to see if there's something that you think actually I can spare that with the time to reflect on it, because it is always tempting to just put ideas and ideas and ideas and ideas in, and we're both very guilty of it a lot of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. No, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's this came in about 1100, which is sort of 400 shy of our normal max cap, really. And then obviously next week it'll have a second part. So this is shaping up to be somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 words quite easily. And I am looking forward to seeing what that reads like. We'll probably make sure to read them, both parts 1 and part 2, next week after we've done our bit of feedback and we've gone away and edited it and continued our stories, of course. But yeah, I think the one thing that I do want to just mention is that I really enjoyed writing this character of somebody that had been not sort of gentled, because I think she's still quite severe, but she's become quite homebody in many ways. But it's pretty clear that she was some sort of terrifying cavalry officer or something.
And still ready to, if it came to it, go get the saber.
Yeah, but she doesn't know where it even is. It's been so long, sort of thing.
It's in one of the boxes in the cupboard. I'm not sure which one.
Yeah, or it's like being used to prop something up in the barn or something like that. Yeah, like it's just
one end of the washing line is tied to us.
There you go. Yeah, see, exactly. It's fucking long saber. Yeah, but it was just this idea that I mean, it may even need a trigger warning of some sort, but obviously it's implied that she has like sexually assaulted someone.
Yeah,
and well, it's not implied. She says point blank that's what she did during the war.
Quite a young man from the sound of it.
Yeah, she's not comfortable with it now. Looking back at it, like it is, it's a crime that she's deeply uncomfortable with. And you do see a lot of violence against women in this kind of regard, like especially when you're thinking about something that's like going to read a little bit like historical fiction or something like that. Like if a city falls and the army that does that isn't well drilled and controlled by a good general and things like that, things are going to go pretty hard for the inhabitants of that city. And it's often men doing that kind of thing. So I don't know. It felt like something that I needed to see this character reckon with many years after the fact. So that wasn't just a throwaway thing. I'm trying to wrangle with that. It's if people are worried that I'm just I don't know, what would it be even called? Not fear mongering, but when you sort of do something deliberately edgy just to spice things up for no meaning.
Yeah, I guess being edgy, being an
edgy. Yeah, I'm not attempting to be edgy. Anyway, I think that's probably quite enough about that story. Thank you for bearing with me there and also giving me some really good feedback. I'll bear that in mind for next week.
Looking forward to part 2.
When you're ready, man.
Well, I bet I had. Part 1. Magic. Impossible! The orb shimmered before me. Its glinting array of lenses darted between my face and my hands. I was trying to think of these as its eyes, but was that what they were? What, after all, is an eye to an extraterrestrial? I have no idea. I didn't want to bring it up in case they decided mine would be a good option for a closer look at eyes. I like my eyes, even if I do have to wear glasses to watch the telly. What is the nature of this transaction? Here, once there was one ball, and now there are three. How is this so? I can't help myself. A magician never reveals his secrets. I don the practiced look of smug superiority. I've never actually taken my magic act on stage, sort of a confidence thing. I had, however, delivered a turn or two worthy of Penn and Teller into the full-length mirror of my bedroom. So I always carried a couple of tricks on me. A coin to appear from someone's ear. That's always a treat for kids. A false thumb, string of scarves, set of cups and balls, set of foam balls, a rope, just the essentials, really, in case there was a sudden need for an illusion. In my 32 years of practicing magic, that time had not come. I'd thought it had, a couple of times, but been reliably informed I was wrong. But now, in this strangest of scenarios, I knew it was the only thing between me and certain death. This is marvelous. I will insist that your abilities are recorded by a second for posterity. The lenses on his front whirled a series of vibrant shades, and then it called again. Blimblarp, come here. I must show you the human magician. The strange, trilling whir of another of these creatures met my ear, growing in pitch and volume as it drew close. Perhaps my tricks had been a bad idea. It had slowed the first of the alien pods, but my plan hadn't really extended beyond that. I'd sort of gotten carried away by what I was doing. I was enjoying the patter, the sense of wonderment, the pure, unadulterated thrill of it. But that meant that when the time came, I hadn't decided if I was just going to peg it or try and bonk the floating git with a bin lid or something, and now it was gathering a crowd. Damn my skills. Why do you summon me, Clambard? The new orb arrival spoke with something close to aggression. The strange, inhuman quality of their voices warped somewhat with its mood. I couldn't help but wonder if this was for my benefit. Were they somehow altering their speech to make me comfortable, or to make sure I knew my doom was coming? Gaze upon the human known as Steve, the Magnificent. Steve the Magnificent, my apologies. Steve the Magnificent. No worries. I said it as casually as I could. I was distracted a bit, unfolding my collapsible top hat. Good fortune, though, I'd remembered to stash my white gloves inside. I am gazing, Clambard. Are you going to explode it? Negative. The lenses on the front of what I now supposed was Clambard flicked through a range of colours once more. It must be part of their communication. Gaze upon the human. It will provide a visual treat. Clambard turned his lenses back on me. They flashed white, like a small wave across the array. Steve the Magnificent, I demand you repeat duplication of the balls. I swallowed hard. A trick was never as good twice in a row. I'd have to be on my A game. I began the process of obscuring my false thumb and planting my foam balls where they needed to be. You, young man, what's your name? The second orb recoiled gently, floating back a few inches as I thrust a white-gloved digit towards it. My what? He requires your designation, Blimblop. I didn't give him time to recover, not while I have him on the back. Magnetic wave? Pulsar? Either way, the back one. A Blimblop? What do you see here? Orb. Red. Indeed, a red ball. One singular red ball. See, I have nothing in my sleeves, but I'm going to place this red ball here in my hand. Now, I'll squeeze it tight. Now, say the magic word. Blimblop stayed stock still. Quietly, it spoke again. I do not know the magic word. Hocus pocus! Bellowed Clambard. Well, the magic word can be whatever you want it to be. It's your magic. I smile broadly at the clearly confused orb. Its lenses run a series of shades of blue as it thinks. I would like the magic word to be Blimblarb. It is soft again. There's an air of wonder in it. I think I have him. Then say it loud and proud. Blimblarb? Come on. You can do better than that. Blimblarb! It rings off the alleyway walls. Pigeons take flight, and I'm sure a rat in a nearby bin dies of fright. Explosively, I open my hand, revealing there are now 2 balls in it. The lenses on Blimblarb flash orange. This is it? This is the complete cycle? Yes, it is good. The number may fluctuate as high as 3. It is obvious. I'm shaken by Blimblarb's words. I knew the trick wouldn't be good the second time. It never is. I opened my mouth to apologise, to offer another trick. I've got a set of collapsible peonies and a photo of Richard Nixon in my left trouser leg. I must be able to do something with that. Oh, so? Glambod has come to my defence. What a legend. The human clearly has a subdermal multiplication unit of some kind. Child's play. Humans have not yet mastered that technology. Yes, they have. Nuh-uh. In retrospect, I probably could have left at this point. That may well have been a good idea. I was wounded, however, in and around the pride. I could do another one. Yes, please, said Clambod. Fine, said Blimblarb. Smartly from my pocket, I pull a length of rope and a second, secret rope piece. There are magnets involved and a pair of scissors, and I don't have scissors. Gentlemen, I say it. It might be wrong entirely. Gaze upon the rope. I'm working in their words. I'm a real bro. I do not have a pair of scissors. Can one of you cut the rope right here? I gesticulate the rope in my hand and realise that if they misinterpret, I may be about to have a total of 5 fingers. I will sever it! Blimblarb fires a steady beam of light from one lens, and the rope splits. Thank you, young man. Now, you see the rope is split, but with some effort and your magic word. Blimblarb, it offers softly. I nod encouragement. Blimblarb, they chorus. With a flourish, I reveal the now repaired rope. The orbs flash a series of lens colours and emit small whistling sounds. This is not subdermal duplication. No, it mends that which we have broken. The orbs spin a moment, and I take a bow. He has the fixer's gift. Clambod turns to look upon me, in so much as it looks. Our fixers are perished all. You will repair our ship. We go now to her. I don't get a chance to argue. For a moment I feel like a sponge ball squashed in a fist. And then I split in them 2 balls. And then I am hot, and I feel my very essence break apart. Like a rope carved with laser. And then all is silent. And I can only wait for the big reveal.
God damn, that was funny as fuck. That's so funny. Holy shit, I laughed so much.
I'm glad.
The I would like the magic word to be Blimbop. Oh shit, that was really funny. I liked that a lot. Well observed as well. This idea of this absolute aggressive send up of amateur magicians is something else.
It took everything in me not to include a reference to the tricks are something whores do for money, Michael.
Yeah, this is an illusion. Yeah. There was Arrested Development in there. There was Rick and Morty in there. There was Doctor Who in there. It just felt like a really rich amalgam of all these kind of cultural touchstones that you then put your your tone on. You put your sort of gift for comedy over and create something really interesting. I mean, there was the gag per minute was really high, and I liked it a lot. The um, my what was full Dalek when you said that one.
That voice, I did not plan for it to be so Dalek, but as soon as I started speaking, it was very Dalek.
Yeah, extremely. And that worked because there was this kind of like very slight shyness, and that bit where you talk about like just that edge of wonder creeping in. I think the best line in it for me, it may have been on the delivery, but it was I would like the magic word to be blim blop.
Yeah.
That I don't know. I feel like you could like sell T-shirts with that on it or something because that was really funny, really funny. That like smug superiority of like a magician never reveals his secrets. Just everybody listening to that, apart from amateur magicians, is going to be thinking that they want to slap this guy.
I do.
So, go on, sorry. Yeah.
I just there's something about I really like the gag when he's talking about just the essentials and he's got like loads of stuff on him. But everyone I know or I've ever met who's into magic always has like 8 tricks just about their person,
and
it's fascinating to me.
I've also encountered some people that are like maybe like sub-amateur at this, but think that they are more like they think that they could do the whole on stage thing.
Yeah.
So I think I don't know. It's just something that you can be quite clearly not good enough at, but you only get better by doing it in front of people. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
like having that smugness in this character actually does make them quite heinous, I think, to most audiences. So therein lies my next point, which is that depending on what you go for in the second part, we might need to give a fuck what happens to Steve the Magnificent.
True.
So maybe he needs like just like a bit of a hero turn somewhere.
Yeah.
And you could potentially, or maybe the stakes need to be set a little higher. Because you mentioned that he's slowed the first one.
Yeah.
So the implication I got from that was that it was like an invasion, but then later on it's like the ship is broken. Is that right?
Yeah. So it's in fact, I won't give away the whole plan, but yeah, I really should have mentioned earlier on that sort of everyone was getting chased down by these orbs, and he had managed to the correct one with close-up magic.
Yeah, I think that would
that needs to go in.
Yeah, that needs to go in because if you have a bit where maybe there's like actually dead people or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. That might just be me making it edgy again after that previous story, but it or maybe just that he suspects, maybe he's worrying about somebody in his life, maybe.
Yeah.
Just to show that he's not completely conceited. Yeah, I would like the magic word to be blim blop. I'm going to keep coming back to that one. But the little picture of Nixon was funny as well. That was a bit of surrealist comedy. I feel like that was.
I don't know what you use for magic tricks.
Nixon and peonies, apparently.
I just imagine that you'd say, "I am not a crook," and you throw the picture up, and something happens. I don't fucking know.
You pick someone's pocket whilst they're looking at the picture of Nixon or something.
He said, "Now look in the safe. You will notice that the tapes have disappeared."
It just summons a huge amount of water. I had a few other points. I liked it overall,
yes,
but there were a couple of other points that I wrote down. The bonk the floating git with a bin lid was really funny. That was very British humor. I felt.
Yeah.
I liked that a lot. There was a bit where you said that this like mechanical alien thing stayed stock still.
Yes.
That is a cliche, I think.
Yeah,
that
true.
potentially doesn't work for a thing with no limbs. Um, but you've been doing you up until that point. You had been doing quite a lot of like really interesting descriptions about how the lights moving meant something. Like he was starting to clock
Yeah,
it. So I think the fact that the array would just remain blank might achieve what you need from stock
yeah.
still.
The lights all go out or something. Yeah,
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 yeah. And then you have him sort of sit in this uncomfortable length of time. There is also, I feel like there's and you may well have been setting it up because it felt like you were planting all these things in the first half that you're going to be using in the second half, which is really fun for this kind of storytelling, and
yeah,
also because your storytelling um, concept is based on magicians. Um, but there was a bit where he's talking about his collapsible top hat, and you mentioned these white gloves that he's got.
yeah.
I think there's probably nothing. There's probably nothing funnier than an amateur magician sweating so much that he can't pull on his white gloves. Because if you're that worried, like it would be
Yeah,
really hard to put on gloves, right?
that you're right. That is really funny.
there's just a lot of there's so much scope in this, but I feel like you absolutely nailed it in this first half with just making it as funny as possible. And all my points have been fairly tweaky rather than trenchant, I think. Um, yeah, that was funny.
A couple of really good bits, like the especially the stock still. I think that's a really useful bit of feedback.
And maybe adding in that other people getting run down thing
Yeah,
as
the
well.
the invasions at the top. I think that should. I liked the opening line, but I think there's definitely space after it to sort of set the scene a bit more.
Yeah,
Definitely.
definitely don't change that opening line because I laughed immediately from your delivery of impossible. Like it was one word, one laugh was your tally at the start of this story. So and that ratio didn't really decrease very much as we went through it. Like it was pretty good. Um, yeah, so maybe just after that, just so it's up at the
Yeah,
top. As we said during mine, like make sure all the characters are introduced and the like essential situation is introduced.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, beyond that, really, 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 really fun, really, really good, and I'm looking forward to re-listening to an edited version of this next week. Like these jokes are going to make me laugh again. I know that. I can feel it. Um, so
yeah.
yeah, nice work, man.
Thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed writing it. I'm looking forward to making it. It was really easy to make it funny. Now I get to try and make it really good. So
Yeah, yeah, I think
take
so.
advantage of that 2 week game that we get to play this time.
Yeah, absolutely. I do like it when we do the two-parters.
Yeah,
And I'm hoping that people listening like it as well because they get to listen to a story being formed.
hammered a bit. Yeah,
Yeah, you can sort of see it in its most sort of nascent form. Not a first draft, but an early draft of half of the story, and then based on feedback and based on how it felt to read it, the rest of the story gets written.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm looking forward to next week. Um, gosh, that was so funny. Hocus Pocus also made me laugh when the first alien says that. Oi!
Oh, yeah. I bet little ball aliens are always going to be funny. So,
Is there? Oh, just one final thing. I
go on,
did
go
write it
on.
down, and I wasn't sure whether this might not be a valid point because you might think that it's funny the way that it is, but the bit where the alien starts apologizing quite profusely for getting his name wrong,
Yeah,
is that is it funnier if he corrects them in this kind of smug tone, and and then they sort of just change the name that it doesn't bother them that they've made a social faux pas.
oh, possibly. If he's not sort of the magnificent, because he's realised he's doing his magic thing. If he's just like, actually, yeah, I think I'll have a play with that. That might work.
Just because it felt like it didn't trip up, but it felt like it wobbled a bit for me around that,
Yeah.
and I
Okay.
think that might have been so. Just maybe just have another look. Maybe it doesn't need to be changed too much. Maybe it's a word order thing, or
Yeah.
just maybe have another look at it. But yeah, oh, fantastic, fantastic. So for those that have listened through the whole thing and you've heard our introduction and our two stories, just remember that the link for the Magic Mind stuff, these drinks that both Nico and I have been having and have really been finding that it helps us with our caffeine-related anxiety, shall we put it? The link that you should use to get what sounds like a truly fantastic deal is magicmind.com/TTB20, which is, of course, the tiny bookcase. Let us know what you think of their product.
Yeah, let us know how you get on as glorious Burnout Kings. It's been a help.
Glorious.
We'll see you all next week.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Tiny Bookcase.
Remember to subscribe, otherwise you're going to miss out on the future fun.
Also, tell a friend. If you like this episode, link them to it.
We'd be tremendously grateful. You can follow us on Twitter at BookcaseTiny, Facebook at The Tiny Bookcase, and Instagram at BookcaseTiny for updates. Speaking of supporting the podcast, well, magic can only take one so far. The Tiny Bookcase is supported by the generosity of its patrons. Those kind souls have really kept my belly full the last year. Let's cast a spell for them, shall we? For rich ginger tones on their scalp, let us cast the Orangi Hedondo spell for Scott Byrne. And for general fabulousness, why not the Ooh La La, How's Your Mother spell on Matthew McLaren?
How do you come up with that shit, man?